Everybody, welcome to another edition of our Kosher Curiosities series. It's good to have you back here joining us for yet another round of a wonderful topic and a lot to talk about today. Today's topic is kosher signs. No, I'm not referring to kosher symbols that you will find on the back of food packaging in your supermarkets. Maybe we will get to that one day. Today, we are going at the source of where kosher comes from. Kashrut, the concept of kashrut found in our Torah, Parashat Shminin, Parashat Re'eh, are two of the parashiot that talk about the kosher signs of animals. This is part one of part two of a two-part series. The first part today we're going to be speaking primarily about mammals, domesticated and non-domesticated animals. And Bezrat Hashem, next week we'll look at other species such as birds, fish, and yes, grasshoppers. So Peninei Halakha begins with his introduction on this topic. It is Perek Yud Zayin, if you want to follow, Kashrut Baalei Chayim, and he begins as follows. Kefi shelamadu, we learned, and this is what he's quoting is actually what we learned, what we were studying in the last couple of classes. Achilat basar hi noseh murkav mitzadim shonim. The consumption of meat is a very complex topic. Mitzad echad, achilato ma'anika le'adam kochot rabim. On one hand, eating it can provide us a lot of physical strength and nutrients, gufanim v'nafshiyim, whether, again, it's for our body or for our soul. V'yesh ba'achilato l'shem shamayim gam erech primi shel tikun olam. We learned that if a person eats meat l'shem shamayim, okay, he is being metaken the world, he's elevating the good sparks of that meat and bringing it higher. Me'idach, on the other hand, we also learned last week, too much meat eating can drag a person into ta'avot, desires, and cruelty. And the rule is, the more vitality the food has, whether it's for advantageous or for ta'ava, so the Torah will give us more and more mitzvot to make sure and direct us, we are following the proper path. When it comes to eating meat, we find quite a few commandments in the Torah. He's going to list now 14 mitzvot that have to do with the consumption of meat. These are the mitzvot. Aleph, shelo le'echol behemot v'chayot temeot kesus ve'aryeh. Number one, you're not allowed to eat non-kosher animals, such as horses or lions. Bet, shelo le'echol ofot temeim. You cannot eat any non-kosher birds, such as eagles or hawks. Shelo le'echol dagim temeim. You cannot eat non-kosher fish like catfish or sharks. Dalet, shelo le'echol chagavim temeim. You cannot eat any non-kosher grasshoppers. Hey, shelo le'echol sheratzim zohalim, ofefim, umaymiyim, ketzfardea, hasilon, v'sartanim. You're not allowed to eat any crawling vermin or flying, whether they fly or they're underwater, such as shrimps or frogs or lobster. Those are not allowed either. Vav, lishchot behemot chayot ve'ofot. We have a commandment to slaughter animals, both domesticated and non-domesticated, and birds. Zayin, shelo le'echol damam. You cannot eat their blood. Chet, lechasot dam chaya va'of. We have to cover the blood of the bird and the non-domesticated animals that are slaughtered. Tet, shelo le'echol chelev behemot. We cannot eat the non-kosher fat that are burned on the mizbeach. Yud, number 10, shelo le'echol nevela. We cannot eat any carcass shemeta b'lo shchita, that died without proper slaughtering. Yud Aleph, number 11, shelo le'echol terefa. We cannot eat an animal, even if the animal is kosher, but when you slaughter it, you found a defect in the animal, that cannot be eaten. Yud Bet, number 12, you cannot eat a limb from a live animal. We also spoke about that last week. Yud Gimel, number 13, you cannot eat the specific sinew that is found on the thigh of the animal. And Yudalit shelo lebashel basar bechalav. You cannot cook meat and milk together. And you can also eat from it. You cannot eat from it or have any benefit from it. Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to get to basar bechalav later on in this series, and that's going to take quite a few classes to go through those laws. So now he explains. Yes, mitzvot sheta'aman muvan. There are certain mitzvot in the Torah where the reason or the rationale makes sense. Like I have to honor my parents, tzedakah, give charity, isur retzach, the prohibition of murdering. Even if these mitzvot were not written in the Torah, we would probably fulfill them just based on logic. These laws are called mishpatim. There are certain mitzvot that if the Torah had not actually written them in the Torah, then we would probably not be keeping them. For example, the prohibition of sha'nez, which is mixing wool and linen, and as well eating prohibited foods. We call this category chukim. He wants to say that when a person fulfills a mitzvah that is a chok, where it does not have a rational reason or a reason that is not understood, we are actually expressing more emunah and connection to Hashem. Because we are really just fulfilling this mitzvah because Hashem commanded us to do it and not for any other reason. So we sanctify ourselves much better when we perform these mitzvot. We should not try to find in these mitzvot a personal excuse why you want to fulfill this mitzvah, because it takes away from the uniqueness of the mitzvah, the fact that the mitzvah is able to bring you up and elevate you to higher levels of kedusha. This is why the Midrash tells us that a person should not say, I don't want to eat pig because it's disgusting, but rather, I do kind of want to eat pig. But what can I do? And Hashem has told me that I'm not allowed to eat pig. So some people, they walk around and they say, man, bacon, that looks phenomenal. Or I would love to try pork ribs, but I can't because Hashem commandment, can't eat pig. That's good. It's good. If you want to eat bacon, if you want to eat pork ribs, and you see all these videos on YouTube or wherever of people smoking non-kosher ribs or non-kosher, whatever it is, lobster, you say, man, I would really want to try that, but I can't because Hashem commanded me to do that. That's a higher level. It's a higher level than a person says, lobster is disgusting. I don't want to eat lobster. That's a personal excuse. But now you're bringing the Torah into it. After the realization, fundamental realization that we are not able to understand really the chukim of the Torah, therefore we can really focus and concentrate on the values that are implied through these mitzvot. The most important value here, and yesod, שקשור לעצם היות מצוות אלו חוקים, הוא ההבדלה שמצוות אלו יוצאות בין ישראל לעמים. Number one is that these mitzvot chukim differentiate us and separate us from the other nations. בעלי חיים רבים ברא הקדוש ברוך הוא בעולם. You see, Hashem created lots of animals, a lot of creatures. ואחר שהטיל לבני אדם לאכול מבשר כולם, and after Hashem told us that we are allowed to partake in meat, see Kosher Curiosities number 1 and number 2 for that. He separated us from the nations and he sanctified us with his mitzvot, and only allowed us to eat the kosher animals. And he prohibited and forbade us from eating anything that is tameh. Now he goes on to quote the psukim over here, psukim in Parashat Vayikra and Sefer Vayikra. Velo telechu bechukot hagoy. Do not go and follow the ways of the goyim. Ashanim mishalim pinechem ki et kolel asu v'kutzpam. Whatever they do is I find disgusting. And he goes on to say, Ani Hashem Elokechem asher hivdalti etchem min ha'amim. I separated you v'hivdaltem ben ha'behema teora latemeah uben ha'of hatameh lateor. And I made a distinction between the kosher animals and the non-kosher animals. Amru Chachamim, and the rabbis say from here, Keshem she'ani kadosh, kach atem hayum kedushim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling to Am Yisrael that just like I am kadosh, just like I am holy, so too you need to be different. You need to be separate. The lashon of kadosh in the Torah does not only imply holiness, implies separation. Wherever you see the concept of kedoshim, kadosh, it means a separation. So therefore Hashem is saying, I am separate, I'm different, so you have to be different from the rest of the nations. If you separate yourselves from the nations, then I know that you belong to me. Then I know that you're connected to me. You're part of my name. But if not, says the Midrash, you are like Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babel, and his friends. So the first thing you need to know, he says, the reason why we have kosher animals is we need to know that we are different and we separate ourselves from the nations of the world. And therefore, we need to identify that first and foremost, that we are the nation of God. And therefore, we understand that that is indeed the main idea surrounding eating kosher meat. So someone asks you, oh, why do I have to eat kosher meat for? What's the difference? He's going to go through all the other reasons that some make sense, some don't make sense. But the main fundamental idea here is because Hakadosh Baruch Hu wanted to separate us from the rest of the world, and that is a reason that is written very clearly in the Torah. Now, there are really 4 different categories of creatures in this world. Aleph, Be'emot ve'chayot, those are mammals, that's what we're talking about today. Bet, Dagim, which are fish. Ofot, those are birds. Shratzim, which we call creepy crawlers, that include a lot of things in the water and above the water. You should know that to each of these categories, there is what we call tehorim, pure, and tmeim, non-pure, which we like to refer to today as kosher and non-kosher. The Torah actually gave us signs, kosher signs, to distinguish between what is allowed to be eaten and what's not allowed to be eaten. The Torah also listed non-kosher birds to teach me that the rest of the birds, if they're not listed in the Torah, are actually kosher. Many of the Rishonim, the early rabbis such as Rashi, Rambam, and Ramban, notice that one of the qualities or characteristics of kosher animals is that they eat grass, they eat greenery. While non-kosher animals usually prey upon other animals and are very easily to kill other animals and are kasanim, and they get angry. Since the food that a person eats it influences a person's neshama, influences his soul. So therefore, the Ramban and Rabbeinu Bechaye and the Abarbanel say that this is the reason why we only eat kosher meat, because it's a direct influence to our neshama, and we don't want to eat meat from an animal that preys upon other animals and eats other animals. Yes, shekatvu. There are those who write sha'aminim hateorim bri'im lachila, that kosher animals are healthier. And the non-kosher animals are unhealthy. Many people were against this reason, because the Torah is not really a book of remedies. It's not here to tell you how to feel good and be healthy. Although I'm sure there's a lot of things that are implied in the Torah that way, but that's not the purpose of the Torah. The Torah tells us eat this and don't eat that. And also, you cannot say that the non-Jews are healthier than Jews. We don't find that. Again, the purpose of the mitzvot are meant to uplift the Jewish neshama and make us holier. A Jew that eats non-kosher food is impurifying, is contaminating his neshama, which is the reason why it does not say lo ksherim, it says temeim. An animal that is not kosher should have said lo kasher, but it doesn't say that. It says temeim, impure, to teach me that it actually contaminates your neshama. The rabbi said that when a person commits a sin, it blocks a person's heart. It fools the heart. It doesn't allow anything to penetrate. Shneimar, the pasuk says, "Velo titameu bahem v'nitmetem bam." Al tikri v'nitmetem ela v'nitmetem. Don't read it that you shall be impurified from them, but from the word nitmetem, which is blocking. All of the averot, and specifically the consumption of non-kosher animals, is able to block a person's heart. If you're ever wondering, well, how come I don't understand certain things? I went to hear the shiur, it's not staying, I'm not remembering things, my level of kedusha, my level of connection to God isn't so good. Often that has to do with the things that you eat. It's not me who's saying this. This is actually brought down in the Midrash. It's brought down in the Gemara and brought down by many, many Rishonim. So therefore, a person controls what he actually intakes and what he puts in his mouth. It will actually allow him to connect further with Hashem and prevent any sort of blockage in his neshama. You need to know, because of this reason, that when you eat non-kosher food, it's actually more hamur. It's more strict than any other of the prohibitions, because it's actually entering your body. There is a direct impact to your flesh and your blood, and it causes a defect. You might not see the defect, but the defect is there because it's blocking your heart. Now, let's talk about mammals. Let's specifically focus on this. There are two major simanim, two major kosher signs that the Torah gave for animals and undomesticated animals. Shneimar, the pasuk says, "Zot hachaya asher tochelu." This is the animal that you should eat. Mikol habehema shel haaretz, mafreset parsa v'shosa shesa prasot. That's number one. We're going to translate that very soon. And second, ma'alat gera babehema ota tochelu. So we have mafreset parsa v'shosa shesa, and you have ma'alat gera. So hasiman harishon, the first kosher sign of mammals, is mafreset parsa v'shosa shesa prasot. What does that mean? Parsa hi ma'atet kasha. It is a hard shell. Ke'en tziporen aba. It's like a thick nail, or etzem raka, or a soft bone. Shegadla al kaf ragla shel habehema, that grows underneath the palm or the heel, let's say, of the animal. Shal yada, through that mafreset parsa. It's able to walk on the ground without getting injured. The second siman, the second part of that siman is that the hooves are split. So a lot of people only know of the split hooves, okay, but that's only the shosa chesa part. But you also have the mafreset parsa, which is the hard nail, or shall we say, the hard shell that's underneath the heel or the palm, however you call it, that when it walks, it protects itself. That is the first siman of a kosher mammal. Hasiman hasheni ma'alat gera. The second siman is ma'alat gera, which we translate in English as chewing its cud. Leminim hateorim sheochlim esev, for these kosher creatures that eat esev, greenery, sheichulo kashum memushach, the digestive system is difficult. Yeshna marechet ichul miyucheda mukeven me'aba kebot. There are actually 4 different stomachs or parts of the stomach where the animal sends the food. Keres, beta kosot, meses keba. Batchila ma'ale agera torshim et ha'esev bimhirut veloatim oto me'at. So first, the animal actually uproots the grass from the ground and chews it a little bit. Mishamu yored la keres. Then it goes to stage number 1, which is the keres. Ve'over ichud rishoni, and digests briefly, or part 1 of the digestion. Misham over le beta kosot. Then it goes to the beta kosot, which is number 2. Umitkabesh kadurim, and then it forms these small little balls. The grass turns into small balls. La'achar miken chozer ve'ole lepe le'la'isa memushechet. Then it goes back up into the mouth, where the animal continues to chew. Vezoi ha'alat gera. This is the ma'alat gera, the chewing its cud. La'achar miken yored la'ameses umikam lekeva umisham lekeva, and then it goes to the meses and the keva, and then it actually digests. Le'arba'a minim yes siman echad shebo hem domim leminim hateorim. There are 4 types of animals that have one siman, one of the two, and they look like kosher animals. But since they don't have two, they are actually impure and they're not kosher. Vehem, the Torah lists them. Gamal, that's a camel. Shafan, that's a hyrax. Arnevet, that's a rabbit. Vachazir, that is the pig. Okay, and the pasuk says, these animals actually chew its cud. These animals actually chew its cud, but don't have split hooves. And that's the camel, the hyrax, and the rabbit. The pig has split hooves, but does not chew its gut. Now, he does say a very interesting biological fact over here. The truth is that the hyrax and the rabbit don't chew its cud. But muvan mukubal. Since when you look at a rabbit and a hyrax, it always looks like it's chewing, or the mouth always moving. It looks like it's chewing its cud. Because the arnevet, one of the reasons why many say it's not kosher, the rabbit, is because it eats its feces. Okay, it looks like it's ma'alat gera. Leficha katva Torah Hashem tmeim. That's why Torah tells us that they are not kosher. Hoy ve'ena mafrise parsa, because they do not have split hooves. Hachazir, the pig, mafris parsa, it has split hooves. Aval eno ma'ale gera, but does not chew its cud. V'lachen hu tameh, and that is why it is tameh. Od siman, another siman, another kosher sign. What is another kosher sign that you can find on kosher animals? That you will not find any front teeth. You won't find front teeth on kosher animals. You will find front teeth on a rabbit. You will find front teeth on a camel, but not on a cow. Siman nosaf, another a sign. You will find that the meat or the flesh that is underneath the tailbone goes both horizontally and vertically. Omnam, however, gamla arvad simanze, the arvad also has this feature, and that's not actually kosher. Od siman amru, there's another siman, another sign. That the milk of kosher animals are able to turn into cheese. While the milk of a non-kosher animal cannot turn into cheese. So if you're wondering if that's the case, why can't I eat any cheese in the supermarket? You're going to have to be patient to wait for the cheese class, which will come Bezrat Hashem. Od siman huzkar, another siman, shekol sheyesh lo karnaim siman shu tahor. Any animal that has horns is also a siman that it is kosher. Ulam siman ze eno muskam alakol k'siman muvhak, but this actual sign is not agreed upon by everyone. It's not considered siman muvhak. Kichlal, as a rule, hasimanim shenatna Torah v'minim hateorim hem simanim shel ochle esef she'enan torfim. The signs that the Torah gave for kosher animals are the fact that they eat grass or greenery and they do not pray. Shehoid, pray as in pray on animals and eat other animals. Since the grass is difficult to digest because of the cellulose, Hashem created in their body a system for them to re-chew and to re-digest the greenery, so that it could digest properly. And instead of claws like the other animals that are non-kosher, it has that we said that hard thing at the bottom of their heel, which allows them to run on the mountains and maneuver through rocks in order to find grass to eat, and as well to eat quickly, to run away from any type of animal that might be chasing it so that it can find food and eat at peace. The fact that they don't have teeth in the front of their mouth also expresses the idea that these are not animals that prey upon others. And because teeth are really just meant, the teeth that they do have are meant to chew the greenery. The horns, the fact that they have horns is not for an attack, but to prevent themselves as a defense. We see from here the kosher animals are able to sustain themselves very well in the world. That if you are willing and ready to find enough with what you have, that you don't have to actually go and eat other animals to sustain yourself and be filled, but rather, even if you just happy with what you have, you will clearly see that you have enough to live on. One last piece, and we will conclude the shiur. Asara minim teorim manta haTorah. There are 10, specific animals that the Torah counts as kosher animals. Shneimar zota behema shetochelu shor sekesavim seizim. So that is the bull. You have the lamb and the goats. You have the ayal, that's the elk. Utzvi is a deer. Yachmur is a fallow deer. Akod dishon utova zamer. Not sure what those are, but those are other type of undomesticated kosher animals. Shloshet haminim harishonim hem behemot. The first three are domesticated. Hayinu chayot mevuyatot, domesticated. V'shivat haminim shacharem hem chayot bar. The other ones live in the wild. Avshalin yanti manei atara. Even though with regards to the kosher signs that both have en hevdel ben behemot lechayot v'chulan kshor la'achila. There's no difference between the elk, the deal, and the cow. Okay, they're all kosher to eat. When it comes to korban, we only allow behemot, domesticated animals. And in addition to this, we have another mitzvah for domesticated animals. We're not allowed to eat the forbidden fats. They used to take these fats and burn them on the mizbeach. Meidach, on the other hand, yeshna mitzvah miyuchedet bechayot ve'ofot. We have a special mitzvah for undomesticated animals and birds, shetzarich lechasot et aman ba'afar la'achar shchita, which we learned you have to cover the blood after you shech the bird or you shech one of these non-domesticated animals. You have to cover the blood with dirt. Amru Chachamim, the rabbi said, Masechet Chulin, galui v'yadua lifnei mishamar v'ayah haolam shachayot atmeot merubot al teorot. It is very known to Hashem and around really anybody that there are a lot more non-kosher species than kosher species. That's why the Torah specifically tells us and lists the kosher species. But just like all creatures in nature, we see that they have spread out into different races. And he goes on to speak a little bit scientific here. I'll do my best to translate, but some of the terms I'm not quite sure. Zehut sheloshet minei abema yedua, the identity of the three mammals, or shall we say domesticated animals. Hoid vehem minim mevuyatim, since they are domesticated. Lachen lo nishtakha masoret shelem. We kind of know exactly what these animals are, and we didn't forget them. Harishon hu shor, we have a bull or an ox. We call it a shor or par, depending on, the context. And the female would be the cow. And the children, the calves. And in terms of the entire family, we call it bakar, cattle. And they have a lot of different races or sects. We have Damascene type of animals, Holstein, Hartford, Berhemam. Not sure what those refer to, but I'm sure there are different types of this class. Hamina Sheni Se Kesavim. The second type would be the lambs or kevasim. They're either referred to as kesavim or kevasim. Lezachar korim ayil. We call the male a ram. And the female we call a ewe. And we call baby lambs the children. They also have various types. Marino, avasi, and hamina shishi. The third type izim are goats or izim. Lazachar korim taish v'sa'ir, and nekeva ezu seira, v'latzirim gedi ugdiya, baby goats. They also have their different races. Umehem baladi valfini, lishtei mishpachot hakvasim izim korim tzon, and the general sheep and the goats and the lambs are fit into the category of tzon, which are called sheep. Zehut shivat minei achayot shegadlot bar nishakha berabot hashanim v'galuyot. The truth is, he says that the non-domesticated animals over the years the names have been lost. We only know two major types, tzevi va'ayal, which are the deer and the elk. However, since the kosher signs of the domesticated animals are very clear, any chaya, any deer or elk that has these signs, muteret lachila, are allowed to be eaten, and that is the halakha. Al pi ha'chaluka mkubelet kayom b'meda zoologia, as what is accepted today in the science of zoology, כל מיני הבהמות והחיות הטהורים נמצאים במחלקת היונקים בסדרת מכפילי פרסה תצורה מעלה גרה. If you look at it, you will find that everything that is considered a kosher animal or domesticated animal have this split hooves, and they have the maalat gera, they chew its cud. But if you see a specific animal that you are not familiar with and you want to make it kosher, you need experts, rabbis who are able to tell for sure that indeed that this is has all the kosher signs. And if indeed that's what they find, then it is kasher. That's going to conclude tonight's shiur. B'ezrat Hashem, next week, I hope you can join us as we continue this discussion, as we look into birds and we look into doubtful situations and we look at various types of fish and grasshoppers. That is always a very controversial topic. Okay, wishing everybody a wonderful night. Be well.